All right, we'll get started right now while people log back in. So my name is Tony Carcamo. Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm president of Civil CAD Learning Solutions and also president of the DFW BIM Infrastructure User Group. And I wanted to thank everyone to basically the Expert Elite World Video Podcast. So I want to introduce all our Expert Elite members. Definitely appreciate y'all coming in and helping me with this event. So Chris is also an Expert Elite alumni. So just want to let everybody know we have alumni and we have current Expert Elite members. So Chris, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, we'll just go down our grid here and introduce everybody.
Christopher Fugitt, alumni. I work for Civil Reminders, my own company.
Yep. And what software are you kind of an expert in?
Civil 3D.
Okay.
Primarily.
All right. And what shirt are you promoting today?
Cal Poly Rose Float Team.
It's
Cal Poly Pomona and San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
They compete once a year at the Rose Parade.
There you go. There you go. Rob, you want to go and introduce yourself?
Sure. Rob Sinclair. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I work for Civil and Environmental Consultants. We also go by CEC. And, my kind of software expertise is Civil 3D, InfraWorks, Recap. Also heavily involved with drones and LiDAR scanning, if anybody has any questions around that.
Yeah, cool. Todd?
Todd Rogers, currently in Houston. Been here since '93, originally from Johnson City, Tennessee. Go Vols. I had to change my hat for Danya. BIM manager for Walter P. Moore. Specialize in pretty much the AEC collection.
All right, cool. Sam?
I'm Sam Lucido. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I'm been using AutoCAD and Civil 3D for 25 years. So I primarily work in Civil 3D right now as a senior civil designer for Jacobs.
Cool. Donnie?
Hey folks, I'm Donnie Gladfelter. I am the design technology manager at Timmons Group. We are a civil survey and GIS technology firm, which certainly kind of means that my software focus of choice is going to be Civil 3D, AutoCAD, InfraWorks, pretty much anything people who like to draw dirt might use.
Frank?
Hey there, everyone. Frank Mayfield coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Not Chicago, not Wrigley Field, but you can probably figure out my baseball affiliation. It was either this or my Baker Mayfield Sooner jersey, and I figured that might be a little too controversial for some of you, so we'll leave it at that. I'm currently a consultant here in the Tulsa area. Got out of industry a few years ago, and I have a handful of clients that I do things for, mainly some on-call CAD management type things. I've been a CAD manager for the last 15, 17 years in various industries. Mainly my focus is with the AutoCAD products, and I do have some recent experience with Plant 3D, although it's been a few years and I've probably forgotten more than I knew to start with. So that's me.
Cool. Right. Brian?
Hey, I'm Brian Hailey, out of Colorado, and I'm the CAD manager at GEI Consultants. Before that, I've spent, about a dozen years trying to sell the software to you guys. But I'm not doing that anymore. I'm back in the real world, and I primarily use Civil 3D, InfraWorks, Recap, Subassembly Composer, the hydrology tools, fun stuff like that.
Yep. Dan?
Hello. So I'm the Director of Design Technology at Lake Flato Architects in San Antonio. I specialize primarily in Revit. I've written 6 books on Revit, 2 on AutoCAD, 1 on SketchUp, 2 on hand drawing. One of the Revit books is the #1 Revit book in North America. And on the shelf right behind me, right there, is the first book I wrote on Revit, which was copyright 2003 and has Carol Bartz and Phil Bernstein's signature on the cover. I also teach graduate architecture students and landscape architecture students at North Dakota State University in Fargo.
Ooh. You weren't representing any shirts for your
No,
school?
I'm actually not a sports fan. You did mention alternatively a movie, so my favorite movie is True Lies with Schwarzenegger.
There you go. Hey, Mark.
How are you, sir?
Good. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Mark Behrens. I'm working in Plymouth, Michigan. My software of choices. AutoCAD started version 1.9. Currently been using electrical for about 10 years now. Won't claim to be an expert in it, but I've had to make it work and I've had to make it do what I need to do.
Yeah.
Primarily do that. And on the side, I play CAD Manager at times.
Okay, cool. Favorite movie or team?
Monty
Monty Python.
Monty Python.
Okay. Awesome. That's a good movie. That's a good classic movie.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
John. Be
Hello,
careful.
everyone.
Pull over. I want you to get a
Yeah,
wreck.
nope. I'm about to park, but I can go through this real quick. My name is John Mayo. I'm a project engineer, municipal rep, and hydraulic designer at Boswell Engineering. I'm also an adjunct professor at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. And my software of choice is, of course, Civil 3D, InfraWorks. I do a lot of the hydrology apps and HEC-RAS. I've done a number of Revit models too and BIM models for our company in different applications. And my favorite team is the New York Giants.
All right. Okay. Cool. And David?
They saved the least for last. That's good. I'm David Butts. I'm an engineering technology manager for Gannett Fleming. We're a large AEC firm that specializes in pretty damn much everything. So, but I focus primarily on water resource type projects and facilities works. I'm a 36-year Autodesk product user chasing after Mark right now. I think he's like 2 months ahead of me. And I primarily focus on Revit, but I use a little bit of everything, man. I use Inventor. I use a little bit of AutoCAD still, AutoCAD MEP, Plant 3D. I've been involved with the development of Plant 3D and Revit over the years, and actively still involved with a lot of features at the specifically along electrical and things like that.
Yeah.
Taught at AU for 16, 17 years in a row, and now my favorite team, of course, being from North Carolina, is the NC State Wolfpack.
There you go.
But I do have a little love for Tennessee because my dad's a UT grad, so go Vols. So a little bit of love. I had to do that for Danya too, man. I can't let her off the hook without giving her a little Gatlinburg love there. But yeah, I'm one of the official old guys in the room.
I might be the baby in the group, possibly.
You are, yeah.
Yeah, I think I am. So
I'm at 35 years, David.
I didn't start till 97. So with AutoCAD version 12. So, yeah, man, I'm wearing my Notre Dame shirt. I'm a big Notre Dame fanatic, not a fan, but I'm a fanatic. So I watch across multiple platforms. So soccer, women's basketball, lacrosse, hockey. So I watch even baseball. If it's on TV, if it's Notre Dame, I'll watch it. So I'm a big fan. So for all the guests and attendees that are logged in right now, go ahead and post your questions in the Q&A section. And then we'll try to start answering some of these questions. We will get started on one of our topics. Our first topic is CAD and BIM management. And I guess I'll have a question to the group, and anybody can just kind of jump in and, discuss, your opinion or your thoughts about the topic. So my first question is, CAD management, during last year, I know a lot of companies were working remotely, and a lot of people were working from home. Some people were working at the office and half at the. So did anything change at your company for CAD and BIM management? Any kind of workflow? Did anything like that in your company? Do you have any input on that?
CAD management? We don't do CAD management anymore. We do BIM management.
Sure did. So I know some companies that actually have CAD managers that does kind of a Q&A, QC kind of. You print out the plans and they actually review the sheets in person, and then it goes to another Q&A team for like engineering wise. I don't know if any of y'all take part of that kind of Q&A, QEC for engineering plans. So I was kind of wondering, did y'all just kind of review PDF plans at home? They're not processed. How did training work for your company if everybody's at home? Did you just do it through Zoom or Teams or Slack or whatever, or screen sharing software you were using. So, what changed y'all's company last year, for basically on the CAD and BIM management side? Did anything change? Anybody have any input?
I'll go. So one of the things that changed for us was training, obviously. I'm fairly new at GE. I was there for about 6 months before the whole world shut down. There were plans to go company-wide to a bunch of different offices, do a lot of training, and all that obviously got put on hold, and that we went online for that. We use Microsoft Teams, but it still seems to work pretty well. I am a true believer that in-person training is a lot better than online training. There's a whole lot you don't see. There's a lot of communication that's not verbal, right? And so I'm a big fan of that. So we're planning on starting that back up again. As far as technology goes, we had put everything on. We had made the switch to Panzura before the whole thing shut down, and so making the switch to remote working wasn't too bad for us. The main issue we had was people's internet speeds, which you're going to suffer with no matter what technology you're using, unless you've got everything stored local. So that was our biggest hurdle, but it went fairly smooth for us, fortunately.
I was going to say, I was just about to essentially echo much of what Brian said in terms of sort of our transition. I guess we were somewhat lucky in the sense that we had already transitioned to Panzura before the world shut down. And so the transition to working from home wasn't as painful as it absolutely could have been. But for me, kind of in a similar boat to Brian, I transitioned from working with a reseller or for a reseller into a CAD management role shortly before the pandemic, a little bit sooner or a little bit earlier, however you want to relatively say that, than Brian. I started in my current role in January, or the end of January 2020. So I had a good month and a half-ish before everything was shut down. So I barely kind of knew my way around at least the current version of the organization when things shut down. For us, I think like a lot of firms, our thought was that, we were kind of buckling up for kind of a bumpy ride ahead, right? Where, right out of the gate, we had a bunch of projects put on hold or paused or, all of the different bits that kind of weigh into that sort of uncertainty. So sailing into this, we kind of expected our team to have some idle time that they wouldn't have otherwise had. So we made a big, strong push into training, thinking that, hey, our folks are going to have some time that they haven't had for several years now to kind of upskill themselves and learn more, learn better skills. And so we really kind of doubled down on our training program. Fortunately, the sort of projects that were put on pause were only put on pause for, a few weeks, a month, and everything kind of came back full steam. And we're, we can hardly hire people fast enough right now to keep up with our backlog. But it gave us the opportunity to put together what I think is a really awesome training program. Likewise, and I'd almost be curious to hear from the other panelists here too, in terms of, the pandemic, I think, was the sort of opportunity for us to kind of complain about how the pandemic was preventing us from doing things the way we always did it, or kind of embrace, hey, we've got this pandemic. It's kind of an opportunity to do things a bit differently. For us in that theme of training, one of the things, one of those sort of opportunities that we sort of saw was, hey, we're going to have to do our training, over Zoom, web-based, not ideal. We'd much rather have things face-to-face, but it did allow us to take what is traditionally a 3-day level 1 Civil 3D class that we offer. And instead of offering it as 3 consecutive days, offering it as 6 half-day sessions that we basically meet with our teams twice a week for 3 weeks is kind of the schedule that we've worked out with that class. And it's been, I think, a helpful kind of opportunity for us in the sense that it gives folks the opportunity to test out whatever concept is shared in that particular session. They get a day or so to kind of put it to work and kind of come back to the next session of class with their questions and so forth. So, that was sort of one of those unexpected opportunities that actually turned out far better than I personally thought it was going to.
At my previous firm that I was at for 17 years and 280 person firm, half civil, I was there through the beginning of the pandemic, and the other half of the firm that's on Revit was already all in on BIM 360. So architecture, MEP, structural, 180 active projects in BIM 360, including a nearly $1 billion hospital with Ewing Cole. We tried very hard, getting Civil 3D to work in BIM 360, given that it had just come out at 2019. Lots of challenges with existing big complicated projects that had XREFs and data shortcuts, but it sounds like it's progressed pretty well since then. Another interesting thing about Office going into the pandemic, which I experienced both, having been at two firms now, is if the user base is laptop heavy, do they have the data, in the software with them locally, which sort of makes Panzura not that helpful because it doesn't go to the end user, right? Or are they remoting in from like a thin client or a tablet? So at my previous firm, it was laptop heavy, and BIM 360 was awesome, and CTC's Hive software to host the content in the cloud for Revit in particular was awesome. I just put a couple of links now in the chat. One is an interview I just had with Dell about our computer topology at Lake Plato, where everybody had high-powered desktops with RTX 5000 graphics cards to do some heavy Enscape stuff. We ended up, as that article points out, buying all 120 people a full computer package for home, and using VMware Horizons Blast technology to enable high quality graphics. So basically a one-to-one remoting into a single desktop in the office through the VMware ecosystem, where there were some lower powered people on just pure VMs, not a high powered desktop.
If I could add to the discussion, the company I work for is basically at about 15% back in the office at this point. Before this all started, we were looking at training. We were looking at going into a good approach. The pandemic issue has brought up, I shouldn't say brought up, it's magnified quite a bit the weaknesses of the internal systems, because the issue I have is I'm working with many engineers who have zero background. Some have 5 years, and some have done just standard AutoCAD. And working with electrical, it's just a little different vertical, but it brings up a fresh perspective on the weaknesses that the infrastructure within an organization has in a very big way. And we're trying to get through that. And I have one other person who's got as many years in AutoCAD as I do here. But now we're running into the issue with getting the desired training to be something that everybody actually buys into. Right now, we don't have them here, so we can't set them up and say, okay, here's when we're going to do what we're going to do. And we too are using, actually, I'm in the office all day, but most people are in a laptop situation with the VPN. So they're spending so much time with the VPN, they're not going to sit there and try to work through a training session. So it's put a big crimp in advancing a management initiative, which is getting everybody on board and up to speed. It's like I said, shown a lot of where is the issue, not in what we want to do, but the system that will allow us to do it.
I think that one of the things that was really cool about us, I mean, we sent 2,600 employees home. I mean, there's a lot of people to send home at one time. And we had the traditional WAN network where we had a heavy dependency on our servers and everything else. A couple other incidents later, we find ourselves making that wholesale shift over to cloud-based technologies. And I think the biggest issue we came across was awareness, just making sure that people knew the difference in what they were doing in their old system and what they do in the new system. And it's really kind of funny because I still see people try to do the same thing they did on our servers. Like, let's take all these files that are in BIM 360, create another folder called backup and copy all the DWGs in there. And then let's have that as our backup. And so we've had to go through this training that we're actually in a big initiative right now, using some online video training series to actually go through and teach people, hey, you don't have to do that. Whatever you did in the network, we need you to unlearn what you did and learn how to do things the new way. So the big push for us has been less on the big class and more on the individual to get them up to speed to understand what the differences in the technology are. And there's huge differences in how it's evolved, especially just in the last year and a half. It's just people getting used to that switch to working from home and having to work without somebody standing over your shoulder watching you all the time. Big change.
Just the one big thing that brings up is the fact that many of the people who should be interested in learning and working with and putting new knowledge into their daily application, we've seen a very broad spectrum of interest in it. And that's really thrown a big monkey wrench, let's just say, into the way it's being received. So it's become it's put a little more onus on people doing the training to keep it interesting and to keep people wanting to learn. It puts a trainer more on the game when they have half an hour to work with somebody instead of 2 hours because they're in an office type thing. So we shall see. It's just gotten very interesting because management hasn't for many years put pressure on to train. So now the pandemic hit about the worst time. I'll just put it that way.
So I see it kind of in the chat. We've got some folks kind of talking about things like Pinnacle and kind of other ways to reach, obviously, your end users. I think at the end of the day, this is my opinion. I see Todd has offered some comments in the chat there as well, but I wouldn't let a tool lead the conversation is my personal bit of advice here, that it doesn't matter if you choose Pinnacle, if you choose LinkedIn Learning, if you choose Globally Training, you choose any of the various CAD Learning, any of the various players out there. The tool is not going to solve your problems, period. At the end of the day, you're going to need a champion to reinforce it, to promote it, to figure out a way to align the curriculum with whatever the needs of the company are. Again, I think Pinnacle is just as good as any of them out there, but I would really encourage you to understand what your business needs are and see which of the various players out there best align with your needs. For us internally, before I came on board here at Timmins, they had used Pinnacle, and largely because of the pieces that I mentioned, that there wasn't really one to reinforce it and promote it and kind of be that sort of PR champion. It wasn't the success that people hoped it would have been. But again, I don't really blame the tool so much as I do the people and program that was assembled or frankly not assembled around it. So for us, we have personally decided kind of moving forward right now to do more of a bespoke solution. So we have a learning management system plugged into our intranet that we capture all of our internal training. We produce on-demand videos and we've kind of built our own Pinnacle LinkedIn Learning internally. Again, that also takes the support of management, though.
That I understand exactly where you're coming from, and we're currently working with management to fully implement what our software capabilities are, because now it is that's why I'm using legacy drawings and legacy documentation from 15 years ago, and people don't understand what the full potential is because it's never been used. So they're seeing snippets, not you click a button and it'll do, and as your software says, it'll do 100 things. Well, I can only show you 10 because the software doesn't work with the data that's been given very well. So that's one of the things that I'm working on right now, is how to best balance a management level interest with working with 2021, 2022 software and incorporate it. It gets to be very interesting. It keeps, like I say, keeps you on your toes.
I mean, I know one of the challenges for me in building a training program, especially in 2020, 2021, you add things like the pandemic on top of it, but there's other, I think, kind of somewhat unique challenges that would have been present regardless if COVID was in our lives or not. And for me, I know one of the areas that I spend a lot of time thinking about is really just sort of the generational diversity of our organization. So, you know, we have 4 generations in the workforce now. You know, the kids that are graduating college right now are part of a whole new generation, Gen Z, I think it is. And, you know, for me, it's, you know, I certainly think about sort of the macro bits of each of those generations, right? Where your Gen Xers, millennials, you know, they're going to be kind of on that fence of really wanting that in-person training that obviously COVID has, you know, given us a challenge for. When you get to the other end, the younger end of the millennials and into the Gen Z, you know, they want that kind of YouTube bite. And so, you know, I think it's about adapting our delivery style to the audience that we have, not trying to demand that our audience adapt to our preferred style. And so, you know, internally with the training program that we've built up, you know, we do offer those big, long 3-day-long Civil 3D classes. But in addition to that, we also have a somewhat weekly-ish, what we call Tech Tip series, which is just like a 5-minute kind of instruction on some sort of topic. Usually it's kind of cherry picked out of our support tickets. But again, a big part of that is just the recognition that, you know, our younger engineers, the ones that have just graduated college, they're part of that Gen Z generation. They want the 5-minute YouTube snippet. They don't want the 18-hour long or 30-hour long, you know, Civil 3D fundamentals class.
Speaking of intranet, we use knowledge architecture synthesis, which is something that is basically built on top of SharePoint. And it's a really great tool. If you haven't looked at it, it's geared towards the AEC industry. It helps cultivate a culture of learning. You can have, you know, it competes with Teams in some ways in terms of its ability to add, you know, messaging and whatnot, but it's also a great way to host learning material if you don't want to go with a packaged approach and sort of build it yourself. So I definitely recommend you check that out. It has some great analytics. You can see how many people are seeing the content that you're pushing out there.
To add on to what Donnie was saying, when I was doing CAD management for many years, a lot of the companies had some kind of internal video training platforms they purchased. And so I would oversee who was watching the videos, how many people were watching it. And it was really low. You know, we're talking about less than 10% were actually watching the videos. And the only way I could get people to come to actually train was doing lunch and learns, you know, doing in-person lunch and learns. Another thing I noticed was that I actually had to like create incentives to motivate people to want to learn new platforms. So I created an incentive program through the companies where, whoever watched the most videos or took the most online exams and, got more interactive on the training programs would get bonuses or rewards or prizes and stuff like that. So that's something I noticed right off the bat, was I had to create some kind of incentive to get people to want to learn and watch the videos, because I saw maybe 3 people out of the 100 watching the videos, 3 out of 100. That's very low numbers, and they can watch it anytime, and so we had to create an incentive program to get people to watch the videos. So it's kind of what, the generations, the different generations there. So, just like Donnie said, a lot of these youngers wanted to watch a short version than watch a 15-minute, 30-minute video, more detailed video. They want a short version of it. They want to be entertained with the video. So we do have some questions coming in. If you have noticed in the Q&A in the chat, people are posting some questions. Somebody did post a question about CAD Manager and the BIM 360. Let's see here. Has anybody experienced any issues? Let's see, with CAD Manager issues and BIM 360. So is anybody currently using CAD Manager in the BIM 360 right now? I'm assuming through Civil 3D or?
Don't think it's fully supported yet. I think there was some updates recently with Civil 3D and with AutoCAD and with new versions of Desktop Connector. I know they're working on.
Yeah, I know they're working on it too. I've recently talked to people at Autodesk about that, and they know about the issues and are working on it. So look for something soon.
Okay.
Right, and it affects AutoCAD MEP, AutoCAD Architecture, AutoCAD, and Civil 3D, all of those. Plant 3D, however, is not affected.
Somebody did post at the very beginning of the webinar. Is there a way in Revit to schedule the warnings? I don't know.
I replied to that
Okay.
saying I don't think there is.
Okay.
You can export them and do other things with them outside of Revit, but I don't think you can schedule them unless you're maybe using
Right.
Dynamo or something.
Yeah, the closest thing I know, I'm certainly far from being a Revit expert, but I know there is the BIM interoperability tools from Autodesk that has a model checker bit in there that will generate reports and whatnot. Certainly not a schedule, but it's, I think, kind of to Dan's point, a way to potentially get things out of Revit into a more manageable format.
It's a good question because with Revit 2022, they've removed a lot of limitations on schedules. So in a multi-category schedule, you can quote unquote schedule everything in Revit except for warnings, apparently.
Yep.
I actually tried while we were talking and I can't get it to do it.
We actually had another good question. What's your advice for someone who wants to go from design role to support role? Any kind of, thanks for Todd and Donnie and John for responding. But if anybody else wants to kind of add on to that, so you're basically going from a designer engineer role straight to now training support role. And so what's some good resources?
I'll say a couple of things mentioned here I think are absolutely critical to success anywhere. And people mention management support. If you don't have management behind you, literally demanding that these people improve their skills, because you have to, and management will only do that if you show them the cost benefit or their cost loss that they're losing, their profit loss. So you explain to management how your production can increase. They force the users, but the incentive that was mentioned, you mentioned, Tony, little bonuses, recognition, that is what really works well. And, Donnie and others have also mentioned the generations. You need to be able to successfully address them. Your younger staff is more likely to change with ease. And your older staff is more than likely going to be more resistant. You need to, in my opinion, show them the time benefit. the time savings in the tasks you're trying to push across to them. But it gets a lot more difficult with older staff.
I've always told the people I was teaching and doing tech support, as a CAD manager, hey, if I can get you from working, let's say 8 hours on a specific task and cut it down in half, you can work on more projects, get things done faster, which is more profits for the company. And guess what? That's pay raises for you. That's bonuses for you. And that's kind of the way I pushed it towards, the young engineers. Say, hey, the quicker you get this done, the more project we can get to the company, then the more profits the company can make. That's a bigger opportunity for you to get pay raises, bonuses, all those kind of items like that, kind of incentive programs and stuff. And that's kind of the way I pushed it. I don't know, how everyone pushed their training, and but that's kind of the way I pushed it. I don't know if that's probably the best route, but that's kind of the way I motivated people to want to learn new workflows out there.
Yeah, I agree with John too, and what he mentioned about management, and not only that, but they even need to educate themselves enough to know what the competition's doing, to be able to tell their staff, I want to see, curb cuts and head ramps and
show me dollar signs. Show me dollar signs you're saving me.
Right. And not necessarily bleeding edge things. Autodesk just came out with something, you don't have to ask for that, but doing clash detection on pipe networks with Navisworks or something like that. All that stuff's possible. And, not many people are doing it, sharing that published surface with your Revit team or your architect consultant firm, for example.
I kind of find it interesting hearing some of the others here talk about how sort of the financial incentives were ways that y'all were able, even on this call, to get folks to engage with training. I say that just really out of the experience of a conversation I had with one of our directors just earlier this week, actually, in the way that, especially with the youngest generation, our Gen Z staff, that and I guess even some of our younger millennials, that, it truly kind of motivates that staff. And frankly, when we're talking about software skills, that's kind of the lion's share of our audience, right? Usually when you get a bit older than that, you're in a management role, you're not necessarily picking and clicking in the software like you used to. But that this particular manager has found that things like salary increases and title changes aren't quite the motivator for the younger generation that they were for the older generations. And that what the younger generations are really, interested in is, again, having, some sort of purpose in what they do, having, the sort of sense of fulfillment is more valuable in many ways than the financial gain. Now, not to say that salaries aren't important and all that good stuff. It's certainly still important, but it was kind of an interesting, kind of eye-opening experience in that regard. And so, I know for myself, at times I feel like a bit of a marketer internally, in the sense that, breaking sometimes things that I might publish in just one big sort of dump into our, learning management system. I will instead strategically schedule it out, which gives me an excuse or opportunity to send out, 6 weekly emails about this new stuff that we've published into our LMS or whatever that we might be doing, versus one big email that says, hey, there are 6 new courses available on our learning management system. Instead, announcing one at a time. And again, what I have personally found is that that sort of cadence of constant communication that everybody sees, not just the sort of target audience, but also the managers, all of a sudden you start winning mind share of the managers. The managers are kind of seeing an email coming from me about this training or that training, and they are more inclined to press their staff for, hey, have you attended these trainings? Are they any good? And, a lot of times when they say they haven't, they say, well, attend it and let me know, kind of thing. And when they do attend, and it was a good experience, and their manager follows up and kind of hears that it was a good experience, they are more likely to recommend that. And I know for myself, seeing some of the goals that managers created or kind of established for the team in the reviews, I had several managers reach out to me kind of saying, well, what's sort of, the expected cadence of, the lunch and learn targeted training sessions throughout the year. And, basically because of the successes that we had last summer, started putting that just as an expectation in people's performance goals and so forth. So, again, for me, it really kind of boils down to being a bit of a marketer, that, we can't focus exclusively on the technology. We have to focus on the people and what motivates them.
I guess we'll jump into our next topic. What other, software, what BIM software are you currently using? Is your company using any kind of BIM software right now? Anybody want to jump in? And a good examples are like the BIM Collaborate, BIM 360, BIM Plan, Grid, Build, Building Connect Pro, Navisworks, and there's a lot of them out there, Trimble Connect. Is your company using any kind of BIM that's working between different design teams, or even the client, or even the contractors?
We've actually been engaging more of our clients to get involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the hardest sells that we have, again, is getting people out of the systems that they used before, and the workflows and methodologies. And the hardest part we have in the municipal environment is really getting them to address how they've had their standards established for like 20 years, to be able to look at new technology like BIM 360. We have one specific client, though, that we actually started working with to get them to start doing reviews through the cloud and to start leveraging that tool. And that's made a big influence on them because they were a heavy user of PDFs and everything else. And the fact that we could track all these changes through a single model now has made a big difference for them in wanting to move forward and get off of the traditional CAD standard where they're still concerned about what layer something is drawn on. That to me shouldn't be even part of the equation anymore. It really should be about the quality of the documentation and what's being transmitted as part of the project. And so I think that's one of the things that the cloud-based technologies really kind of changed the focus of the client to be looking more at the design rather than drafting standards. It shouldn't be the part of that shouldn't be the priority. It should always be the design.
This is a small thing, but literally right before this call, I was helping one of our users get set up in AutoTurn for Revit, which is a pretty elegant workflow compared to their first stab at having something literally in Revit in 2018. So it works with their AutoTurn online tool, and then it pushes the results back into the Revit view.
I actually have a small engineering company, so I've been trying to teach some of my clients to use, the BIM 360 to collaborate. So it's just a learning process, getting clients to use the software on there to collaborate with our architect. So it's something new. It's sometimes some of the developers are like, no, I'm not learning anything new. Just send me a PDF. So it's trying to get the clients on board and developers on board to use something online to make comments. So.
Which, Tony, I think even to that point that, recognizing BIM more as a process than, a digital file per se. I know we oftentimes kind of get caught up into, unless it's in a .rvt file format, it's not BIM sort of thing. But, I think ultimately it just comes down to, a process. Now, would people define collaborating on a PDF over Bluebeam as BIM? That's probably a little bit of a stretch, but is sort of that process of bringing people, together and collaborating on the sort of information around a model. Is that sort of process, does it have undertones of BIM? I would certainly kind of wager more on the side of yes. It's certainly kind of a blurry area for me, but I think with the sort of dominance of civil on this particular call, the reality is we're still in an AutoCAD world. So I don't know that there's a great deal of opportunity to put a lot of information in our models that aren't already there. there are opportunities, but they're quite limited. But again, I think at the end of the day, it's really more about the process. And I think anything that sort of helps that process, be it collaborating through a Bluebeam studio session or, collaborating in a Smartsheet or a Microsoft Teams or all of these other various tools that maybe aren't really things that we would classify as BIM software, but I think can really elevate the process. To me is certainly where I kind of look for opportunities from sort of an operational standpoint.
Yeah, I'll add to that and maybe even tie in the last question a little bit too, but the need for this stuff should be pretty apparent. We have a pretty big construction inspection department, and a lot of the old time inspectors are driving around with their back seats filled with maps. I mean, just torn, marked up, ripped up. And then we have the new staff, the younger staff is coming in and they're looking at that. I don't want that in the back of my car. Why don't I have a tablet for all this stuff? And that should be enough for your management staff to really come together and see where that need is occurring. When that person with that tablet not just has the maps, but has the current maps, the previous revisions, the contractor's comments, the RFIs, all this stuff in one spot, that, they're not looking around a laptop. They have a little, tablet they can put on their hand grip and just have all that information with them right there. And that is the key to all of our jobs, is getting our answers fast. It's interesting, but that need for this cloud collaboration, it should be pretty evident, especially when you see, like others have said before, your competitors utilizing it and succeeding with it.
Yeah, on that note, I just put another link in the chat on. So it's been out since 2018, and I don't see a lot of companies using the Civil 3D Publish Surface to BIM 360 tool that allows Revit to link in. I first saw about that, and it's in that AEC Bytes article when I was at Autodesk Shanghai, China office, like in 2016. They were showing this feature, and we ended up implementing it on that nearly $1 billion hospital. And it's super complicated site, that 6-story difference between the entering on the north side versus the south side. And so that was sort of a, it definitely works kind of aha moment, jumping off the deep end. And then myself and the Autodesk developer did a AU presentation on that project and the whole workflow. And actually one last thing, when you set up shared coordinates properly in Revit, I was literally given the layout expert for the contractor northing and easting data out of the Revit model. You're all probably shivering a little bit, but it was a half existing project, and he went out and verified that all the points were correct. So there's so much more that can be done, and I just don't see it being done, even on something that's been out for this long. We need this.
Adding on to what John was just saying too, I was just doing a site inspection Friday for one of our projects that was under construction, and all I had was a tablet. Had the drawings, had the PDFs, had the client there sharing the data, making comments right there on the tablet, and of course the contractor had his big roll of plans there. But yeah, I mean, that's all I take with me is my tablet with the drawings on there, the PDFs, even my notes on OneNote. So, and then just share it and link it to my clients and developers, so they get instant information. So. Next question I have. For everybody that's still online, our attendees, go ahead and keep posting questions, and we'll do our best to answer. Someone will either will jump in and answer, or will come into the chat and answer your question. The next question is: other than Autodesk products, what other design software are you currently using in your company? For example, Bentley, Esri, Transoft Solutions. So, if somebody wants to jump in, talk about what products are y'all using with your company.
We use a lot, anywhere from vSim to Bentley products to the Innovize products, which has now been acquired by Autodesk for $1 billion. It's insane. I guess it's worth $1 billion. It works. Autodesk hasn't touched it yet. So Twin Motion I use quite often for visualization purposes. TextDot has me pretty busy these days doing visualization for them. I do it with Twin Motion. Sam Little's actually developing a new visualization software I've been beta testing, which runs off the Unreal Engine. So it could be a potentially very, very good platform. It's called Beyond CAD. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I believe so. But yeah, that's us. I mean, that's for the infrastructure department. That is, we have a structural department that uses Grasshopper and Rhino and all kinds of other stuff that I have no idea about. Yeah.
It get me excited when you start talking about visualization. I just added another link on some use I've done on a street project using the Microsoft HoloLens with Trimble. So Trimble's XR10, pretty amazing stuff. And then, separate from that, Enscape for VR, and I've used that on civil and bridge projects in the past.
Are you using the HoloLens 2 or the version 1?
Both.
I like $5,000 glasses, aren't they?
This is cool, Dan.
What's that?
This is cool. I like it.
Yeah. The HoloLens Trimble XR10, which has a hard hat, which is what you need if you're going to take it on a site. For the HoloLens 2, they make some other people make some clips and stuff that can attach it to a normal hard hat, but it's not certified to go out on construction sites. So that's why you got to pay the big bucks for the Trimble version that's integrated into the hard hat. But with both Trimble's Connect and then also a tool I like even better called Fuser, particularly if you're pushing the model out from Revit, it corresponds a voice command with every category in Revit. So you can say isolate structural verbally and everything disappears, or hide furniture. And I've worked with another civil engineering firm in Minneapolis, St. Paul on some workflows to get InfoWorks into Enscape, which is pretty beautiful, with their grass and real-time rendering engine.
I played with Enscape, and it's pretty good for a very affordable, cheap software.
It's
I'm pretty impressed.
I've been bugging them for years to try and do some civil support. We've had to go through Rhino via FBX.
Mm-hmm.
But I write blog posts for them, so I got some good tie-ins there.
Anybody else using other different products of their company?
I've been using a lot of the Bentley suites, Open Roads Designer, Open Ground, and MicroStation pretty much, because a lot of the projects that I'm involved with, the DOT requires the use of MicroStation and a lot of their work. So I've been transitioning sort of from the Civil 3D world to the Open Roads Designer world.
Some companies, we actually trick them. They would do all their road designs in Civil 3D and they export to DGN.
Some people catch that pretty quick. I know a lot of us have done that in the past too, but
yeah, a lot. Just do it all and then just export it out and then make sure your levels are correct and stuff. So
yeah.
Where we do that nightmare, and it's a lot of unnecessary redundant work transferring back and forth from Civil 3D to the MicroStation world.
Yeah, I've thought of that recently on some of the work that I've done. I said, if I was using Civil, I could do this in an hour, but then I thought I need to kind of figure it out the other way too, so I don't do that route. It just didn't seem, it seems the workflow is already there in MicroStation and Open Road. So to do something different wouldn't be effective, for me in my scenario right now.
Are you using the, what is it called? Open Site Designer, used to be Site Ops also?
Not yet.
I use it off and on. I enjoy it for
the open plant design, it's all of it.
Yeah.
I've been involved in Open Ground, which was formerly Whole Base at a previous company, and they use it at this company heavily in the UK, but not as much in the US. So we're trying to implement that too. which works great in Civil 3D, but I don't know the future of that since it's a Bentley product. You know, it used to be the geotechnical module.
Yeah.
Used to be, you know.
That-
but-
The site ops though was a great tool, still is. I've used it a couple of times. A great tool for large scale, in-depth conceptual work. Maybe not plan, definitely not plan production, but to come across like those big box sites, that was an invaluable tool.
Yeah. Anybody using Esri products?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a
But
really
no-
big Esri outfit.
Okay.
We actually, we have a subsidiary company called Geodecisions that's an Esri Platinum partner. And we've started partnering on several projects with our clients to combine GIS and BIM and PIM workflows together. But we're seeing a lot more integration now, especially now that Autodesk and Esri have decided to play nice with each other.
Yeah.
We're definitely seeing a lot more integration with the two platforms.
Even though we have vehicle tracking, is anybody using like the Transoft Solution software products? Anything? You know, the Taurus? What's the
Yeah,
other
we
list?
use it.
We use them.
We use both.
Okay.
Yeah, we still have or auto turn.
Okay.
We use AutoTurn, Transoft, a couple of them.
Yep. And then how many of y'all are using any kind of drone technology?
Yeah, we have people that use it as an excuse to get out of the office and go outside right now because it's nice. They all get the drones and go out and do all kinds of field work.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use drones a lot. We have 30 in our fleet, and our COO calls it the CEC Air Force. It's kind of funny.
Air Force.
I don't know why I couldn't link it up.
Laser scanning. Anybody doing their own laser scanning?
Yeah, we
already-
acquired a laser scanner not too long ago, and we have a team that's dedicated to it.
Is it survey team or is it other staff? Curious.
We don't have in-house surveyors, so it's not the survey rate. It's primarily for geotechnical work, so monitoring movement of walls, slopes, those types of things.
That you're not using the BLK 360.
Yeah, we use them.
No.
We use them. He's like it, be okay. It's such an evolving industry. The thing about it is everything's changing so fast. And the biggest problem we're running across is people understanding what to do with the point clouds when they get them, because they think there's an easy button that they push, and all of a sudden when you bring the point cloud in, bam, I have a Revit model, and they, not how it was.
The previous company I worked at had survey crews, but we didn't do in-house laser scanning. But we had a elementary school that was under construction, and there's somehow an explosion by some contractor equipment over the weekend, and we used a laser scan for some forensics. That was pretty cool, lining up the Revit model with the point cloud and seeing how the concrete wall moved a few inches at the top and not at the bottom.
And looks like we're running out of time. We got one last question. So is any of your companies going to be upgrading to the 2022 software this year?
Yeah,
August.
we are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we're planning on it in this summer.
Looking forward
Okay.
to it.
Cool.
Interestingly enough, the company I work for, we are on 2019 right now.
Mhm.
The challenge that I'm finding, we've explained to management that with our license and our reservation setup, we can just click a button, but everybody's asking, what's the benefit? We are planning on going to 2021 back earlier this year. With 2022 out, I literally have my hands tied. I cannot install it on my machine because IT is very interesting about permissions. We'll leave it at that. I've got it on my laptops and my home computer, but they're Macs. Long story short, we are planning to go to 2022. I've seen all the improvements that it has. The challenge becomes selling the improvements to management in such a way that you can show they're more efficient, because then you're involving IT, who's got to set up the initial release that's got to go out to everyone. And then it takes a lot of people's time to install it and make it run and do what you need to do. But yes, we're planning to go to 2022. It's just a matter of, as many have said on many other subjects here, you need management buy-in to actually look forward to this.
We had another hour we could talk about the transition to named users as well, right?
Oh yeah, that's
can of worms.
IT just loves that one too, because we've got 12 different engineers that go out in the field to work on some of our machines, and they'll use their software once a month if we're lucky. Keep all those accounts managed and active for what? Personally, I have found that the issue I'd like to actually see us address, which I don't know if anybody else has really thought about, because their companies probably don't have IT Nazis, managers who are very thorough, is the cloud. We cannot, because of IT and the security system, use Autodesk on the cloud. We have no access because they will not set it up for us. Now, if we could get that set up, then I can bring 22 in and show them 100 better ways to go. So it's definitely going to go to 2022. It's just, I'm finessing it right now and trying to talk them into, just let me try it on mine. I'll show you what it'll do. And then the other guy who's been in AutoCAD for 35 years is doing the same thing. So between the two of us, I think we can talk them into it.
Good
So
luck.
we had two last questions come in. One question I asked, pros and cons of reference templates. I've had a few issues with reference templates where I'm assuming you're talking about Civil 3D reference templates, where it would actually affect my line types. I don't know if it affected anybody else, but certain line types will get messed up in my drawing. And as soon as I remove the reference template, it would fix itself. And this is probably like a version to 2 versions ago. I haven't tested in 2021, but when I was doing like 19, I was having that issue. So I don't know if anybody else had issues with the reference templates in Civil 3D. So.
We tested it, Tony, and kind of shied away from it. The reason is because, if you had a submittal, construction set submittal, and then somebody goes and updates that reference template, it could affect that official submittal without, you wanting that to occur. I know there is a way to disconnect that reference template, but, just for that standpoint, we kind of shied away from using those.
Yeah, I don't think they should be used company-wide for sure. If you're going to use them, it should be for this project.
Exactly.
That way you can keep all of the drawings within a project being consistent. So you change the style and it changes throughout all the drawings in the project. But doing it company-wide, no way.
Yeah, we learned that the hard way.
Todd, something bad happened? You said the hard way.
Oh, dude, it was a nightmare. We're working on the Walmart home office right now, which is like a Google campus.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to do that, toward the beginning of the project, and it blew up in our face. I mean, it was taking 10, 15 minutes for drawings to open, and it was a nightmare. Then we had to go through all these drawings and detach the stupid thing. It was terrible. I hate them.
Yeah. And then the last question that came in was, go back up the top. Is anyone having issues keeping materials attached to Revit models when bring it into InfraWorks?
Yeah, I seen them post on by Karsten yesterday, and the AutoCAD material library does not install with InfraWorks, so you have to manually install it. And Dan just posted the AKN.
Mhm.
That, yeah, so it's a manual thing.
Thank you. And I think that's majority of all the questions.
Anyone using grading optimization yet on the civil side?
Have they pushed it out yet?
Yeah,
It
it's
was,
out.
yeah.
It's in 22, but I don't think it's available for 21, even though it was when it was under testing.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it for 2022 yet.
I've seen some videos of it, but no, I've been dabbling with it, trying to use it on something on my commercial projects that I'm working on. It's to me not quite there yet, so it's still got some issues. So I'm gonna kind of work out with Autodesk. So
Yeah, that what is that? Civil site or something like that. I forget. It works in CAD and Brixis.
Yeah,
Ken
civil site design.
Civil site design. There you go. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, well, they
that's
killed
pretty
that in
cool
20.
grading stuff.
oh, they killed it.
Are you talking about like the site designer plugin that you could do like civil kind of stuff in Revit?
No, it's a
Oh.
third-party add-on to Civil
Yeah.
3D. Yeah.
Yeah, they're out of Australia, I believe, something like that.
Mm.
But Ken Driscoll's done a couple demos on it for me. It's pretty good, man. It does great grading things.
Yeah, we just bought 5 seats of it. So
Oh, cool. Let me know how that goes because we're contemplating on getting it or not.
Yeah. And touching back on that hydraulic software that Autodesk purchased, I've never even heard of it, but I found out that it's really mostly for city departments and public works departments that actually has all the seats. Not a lot of the engineering companies have it. So I was kind of curious, is it big overseas or is it big in the United States? All the engineering companies I've been talking to, none of them had it. It was actually the county and the city, that was using it. So I don't know if y'all heard the same thing, but yeah, $1 billion. I was shocked. I'm like, wow. I mean, it must be a pretty bad. I've never played with pretty badass, I guess, hydraulic software.
Yeah, our GIS technology group was familiar with it.
Okay.
But obviously none of our engineering teams really knew much about it.
Yeah. And I know every region in the United States uses different hydraulic software. I wasn't been on the East Coast. They have a certain one. Florida has, I forgot what they use down there. It's a very popular one. And in versus California, they got, they kind of use certain different ones, hydraulic software. But
water runs downhill differently in different parts of the country.
So, yeah.
Runs uphill somewhere.
Somewhere. That's funny.
I think in Florida,
Like,
rain goes sideways.
Yeah. So
According to Forrest Gump, it does.
Yeah. All right, guys. I definitely appreciate coming on to this Expert Elite video podcast. I've recorded it. I'm going to upload it on the video YouTube channel. I'm doing another one hopefully next month. That one's going to be more on the visual side. Where Maya, 3DX Max, Inventor, Fusion. So if you are interested in that, let me know. And so, all right, guys, I appreciate it. And
good to
thanks
see
for
everybody.
coming on.
Yeah,
Thanks for seeing
thanks, Al.
everybody here, and keep in touch.
Thank you
And
for doing it.
I'll
Yeah,
let
thanks for
y'all know
inviting
when
me.
I have the next one.
Boomer sooner.
Later.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.